Good morning and welcome. I am Tony Ard with the Pastor Search Committee, and we're excited to share with you guys what we've been working on and what's going to happen. And the flow is going to be what you see up there. I'm going to talk about what we've done so far to date. Ivana is going to talk about what we heard in the listening sessions, and then Mario is going to close us out by talking about what happens next. So I have learned a lot as part of this process. And one of the things I've learned is this is not a simple hiring process. So I've hired people in the past. I thought we made a list and we did stuff and checked off our list. This is not what we are doing. We are calling a pastor to be in covenant with us. So we will use that term, the call process. It's an intentional, spirit-filled process. So you're also going to find this does not neatly fit on a to-do list. And let's look at what this process looks like. And in case you haven't figured it out by now, this is not your standard Sunday sermon. I can promise it will be brief. But anyway, so this is kind of my attempt to visualize what we've done so far. So you can break this out into 3 phases. So we had to get our committee established. Then we moved into this discern phase where we came and we talked to you. And then finally, that lands with defining our priorities. So let's talk a little bit about what went into each one of those phases, just so you guys have some transparency into what we've been off doing. So under established committee, we were formed with the council. We did some team building things. Don did those little videos that we shared with you guys so you could get to know us. And we've been getting to know each other and how we think and the different perspectives we have. And then we kind of really kicked off in earnest with a meeting with Tyler, who is our conference pastor. And he explained to us the way this works in the UCC world and kind of gave us our guidelines. And then we also got to do software training because yeah, there we go. Because why not, right? So what we learned was the UCC, like a lot of people, are automating things that have typically been manual, so we're on the leading edge of that. Then we moved into the middle here, this discern phase, and this is really like the bulk of what Ivana and I are going to talk about. And that's where we came out to you and to all the different groups, asked those questions, and just kind of heard all the different perspectives that are in the congregation right now. And we're kind of in the process now of reflecting that back to you and then kind of just distilling it down, right? And then that lands in this church profile, which is this big document that we describe who we are and what we're looking for in a pastor. And it's also, actually, it is the position posting, right? That part is in there as well. And that gets posted on the UCC website, and we start hearing from candidates. So let's talk a little bit more then about this discernment phase. You're probably pretty familiar with the questions by now. Maybe perhaps you're even tired of them. That might be good. That would mean we could move on. And just know that was guided by the conference, right? We didn't come up with those 3 questions. We're pretty much doing what Tyler told us to go off and do up to this point. And I just want to make like one kind of personal observation, and perhaps speaking for the committee too, is like we recognize that this is stressful. And that we're going through a lot of change here at church, and we're tuned into that, right? But I would just kind of ask you to consider that multiple things can be true that seem to be contradictory. We can be sad and anxious about what we're going through, and we can be open to change and excited about the future. And I just know personally, myself, as I've gotten older, that I've come to appreciate the in-between times, right? That's when I can feel God moving. And I think that's what I felt in those rooms at times. There were times, every one of those I sat in, there was at least one super profound thing that someone said. Then finally, my last slide before I hand it over to Ivana, we took this approach of coming to you. So we went to as many groups as we could identify and came and asked these questions to you guys in those groups. We didn't want to spin up a whole bunch of separate processes that people had to go through. And we talked to, I think it was 20-something groups and touched over 100 people, or heard from over 100 people. And if you still don't feel like you've been heard from, we're going to have this session again today after the service. So with that, I will hand it over to Ivana.
Thanks, Tony. My name is Ivana Moles. I'm also on the Pastor Search Committee, and let's start this next phase by a reading about who we are from the book of Matthew. Matthew 5, starting with verse 13. You are the salt of the earth, but if the salt loses its salty taste, it cannot be made salty again. It is good for nothing except to be thrown out and walked on. You are the light that gives light to the world. A city that is built on a hill cannot be hidden. And people don't hide a light under a bowl. They put it on a lampstand so the light shines for the people in the house. In the same way, you should be a light for other people. Live so that they will see the good things you do and praise our God in heaven. So in asking the first question about who we are now, we got a lot of responses from all of you. Tony indicated all the groups that we talked to. There were so many profound thoughts that we heard from all of you, and like you said, it was really challenging to distill all of those down. You guys are going to be able to see these word clouds a little bit closer. They're going to be in the fellowship hall after the service, and I'd encourage you to look and see some of the smaller words on there that weren't said by as many people, but that we wanted to make sure were reflected. In compiling all these responses, we did have an opportunity to see some themes develop. And if you're familiar with word clouds, the more times something's mentioned, the bigger it's going to show on the cloud. And some of those themes have been helping to aid us as a committee in developing the church profile. So this first question asks about what we understand about who we are as a community now. This word cloud indicates some of the responses that we heard the most frequently that you can see the best. I think I wanted to highlight a couple things in this. First, noting some of the most common reflections that we are welcoming, we're progressive, we're educated, we're accepting, and we're questioning community. I also think it's important to put in context, as we were distilling out the responses into a word or phrase, the theme of diversity did come up, but you'll also, I don't want to, that sense of diversity I think had not as much to do with racial or ethnic or socioeconomic diversity, but rather diversity of beliefs or worldviews, dogmas, and creeds. Because you'll also see up there our listening sessions indicated that we are graying and white overwhelmingly, but also that we're an active and grounded community of families that takes pride in the LGBTQIA plus members and our music and godly play. As I said, there's lots more words here that we distilled from all these sessions, and I encourage you to look through those more closely when we get out to the fellowship hall. The next question is, who is our neighbor? And for this, I'd like to reflect on a passage from John, chapter 15, starting with verse 12. This is my command: love each other as I have loved you. The greatest love a person can show is to die for his friends. You are my friends if you do what I command you. I no longer call you servants, because a servant does not know what his master is doing. But I call you friends, because I have made known to you everything I heard from my Father. You did not choose me, I chose you. And I gave you this work, to go and produce fruit that will last. And then God will give you anything you ask for in my name. This is my command, to love each other. So in responding to the question about who is our neighbor, I think it was, first of all, something that we recognize that we are our first neighbor, the people in this congregation and the people we are sitting next to in these pews, and how important it is to start with ourselves as a congregation, to recognize that the support we give each other helps us to be a support for all of the other groups that we're we're thinking about as ministering to as part of Chuck. The other ministries that came up most often are the ministries that we talk about a lot, the ones that we support, the Mary Mack House, the preschool, the recovery communities that meet in the building, Western Farm Workers and Family Promise, the West Side Interfaith Group, and other people that use the building. But I think it was also really helpful to note that our reach extends beyond that to other UCC churches, including Bethel, it's our closest neighbor, and expanding even further than that to everyone and anyone. The third question, before we talk about the third question, I'd like to read from 1 John, start in chapter 4, starting with verse 19. We love because God first loved us. If people say, I love God, but hate their brothers or sisters, they are liars. Those who do not love their brothers and sisters whom they have seen cannot love God, whom they have never seen. And God gave us this command: those who love God must also love their brothers and sisters. So in looking at somewhat forward thinking and who we're called to become, I noted that there was a lot of responses that were similar to who we are now. And so one of the words that came up the most was to continue the good work that we're doing now and who we are currently. And so we see the similar themes of being progressive, being open and affirming, being a welcoming community that serves others. But I think we were also doing some projecting into the future and thinking about who we can be and where we have an opportunity to grow. And some of those responses, I think, were being aware of the community around us and who we are, and to be listeners to the people that come in through these doors and to the broader community, to be supportive, and to be a safe place for people that find their way here, and that can be a service to others as well. And I think one of the other things that we've noticed, especially in the last years since we've gone online due to COVID, that we have a huge capacity for being able to use those online resources to expand the way that we minister to each other and to the broader community. So I didn't want to spend a lot of time on all these questions. Obviously, there's much, much more to say and things to reflect. This was just a quick distilling, so you could see some of what everyone else has responded and maybe see some of your own responses here. But I would, again, encourage you to spend some more time thinking about these and reflecting on what you see when you can go into the fellowship hall after the service, and to continue the conversation about this stuff. And again, reach out to all of us if you have other additional thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Ivana. That was great. And thank you to our Steves, I wanted to call out. That was beautiful. I would like to, first of all, second what Tony had said, that this is not a typical hiring process, aside from the software training, which was lovely. But I'd like to now share where we go from here. Having gained a deeper awareness and understanding of the state of our congregation, the neighbors we seek, and where the Spirit is leading us, it's time to share these reflections in the form of a church profile. The exercise of creating a church profile further guides us in discernment of who we are looking for on a deeper level. As Tony said, the position posting is a key part of this profile, but not the only part. The committee members have taken to heart all that you have shared with us, and we have reviewed and discussed this valuable input within our group. We are now deeply ready to utilize these sentiments as the substance of our church profile and to form the message communicated through this posting, with the goal of attracting the most compatible candidate who will reply to our call. Housing, financial information, community information, references, and even pictures are some of the other parts of the profile. Sue, thank you. My bad. It's not working. There you go. All right, so that next, after we have the profile, we'll run it by the conference and they'll review it. This is after we've reviewed it thoroughly internally with our group, and then the conference will approve it for posting. After that, the posting is made live on the UCC Ministry Opportunities website, and ministerial profiles begin coming in. The ministerial profiles are received, and we begin the review process. Candidates may come from different denominations, as you all know, not just the UCC. All denominations that we get ministerial profiles from have active UCC standing and are vetted by the UCC. Invites will be made after the evaluation, and then the interview process begins. After multiple rounds of interviews, most likely on Zoom and in person, one finalist will be invited to what is called a candidate weekend. So at the candidate weekend, the congregation will meet the candidate over the course of a couple of days. It'll culminate in the opportunity for us to hear the candidate preach right here at Chuck. This is all still held in confidence at this point, as they have not been given the final call. A congregational meeting is held immediately after the service, and at that time, a vote is held on whether to make that call. If the vote is affirmative, a call is made, and we rejoice. Thank you. And if you have additional questions, as has been said, we have our feedback session right after service. It'll be in the Niebuhr room starting at about 11:15. Please join us if you'd like to discuss further, or you can reach out to any of us. Our names are all up there. We also have an email at chuckpastorsearch@gmail.com if you'd like to email that group. And on that note, let's join in singing.